Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ben the Pen Man. This is Ben here with another episode. That wasn't redundant. Anyway, welcome everyone. So today I have a fun video about a series I've done before. This is, it's the Neutro story. I made a video, it was one of my first videos, where I drew this picture of the heroes in the Neutro story, and I talked a little bit about it. I'll probably link it in the description. But yeah, this is kind of a follow-up on that one. About something that, a little project I started doing probably like a year or two ago. Like a year ago. But anyway, so I decided, I wanted to make this comic. But making the origin story first is one of those things. It's like, yeah, origin stories are really cool. Everyone wants to hear about them, read about them. You always know the origin story of a character. But I had never really made a comic before. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start before I start making an origin story, and I'm just gonna kind of make a mini comic. I got this comic book paper. Let me see if I can show it to you. See, it has these blue lines. It'll tell you like where it bleeds through. So if I was printing this as a comic page, most of this stuff would get like cut out, like some of this would get cut out, all of that would be cut out, stuff like that. But I basically got it, so I was like, let's make a mini comic, kind of just to practice making comics. And I kind of started it, and then I got stuck, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I just wanted to show you guys these. So what I decided, since this isn't the origin story, I would kind of make like a page explaining how these people got their powers and the bad guy. And so I've had the camera on this for a while. You can probably read it. But it just talks about how the heroes got their powers, what this black stuff is, taking control of this guy here. And basically just kind of tells you where they started. And then I also made this page showing the different heroes. And I think all of these heroes are the ones that you see in this picture here. Neutro, Bash, Barrier, Blur, Jet, Bungie, Node, or I guess Alex, Jason, Ilya, Jaylee, Sandra, Janice, and Dr. Hawthorne. And it just talks a little bit about them. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to do kind of a mini story about just like they find someone who's been infected with the black stuff, and they just kind of go and save them, purify them, like they do. And so I decided to start here. This guy, if you couldn't tell, is not acting right. And as you can see in the next page, he kind of gets tripped by someone and kind of gets angry. And at that point, he kind of reveals that he's been infected and starts showing you his power, which is zapping people. And these next couple of pages are supposed to be the heroes basically getting the call and being told that, hey, there's a bad thing happening, come save everyone. So this is Alex and Ilya. They go to the same university, and so this is just them getting the call as they're seeing each other. This is the parkour gym that Janice's sister owns. Maybe it's her cousin. Imagine knowing the plot of your own stories, huh? No, I think it's her sister or her cousin that owns it. But she's here with Jason. They're doing a workout when they get the emergency, and just those two reacting to it. And then this is where I stopped, and the reason why is because this is the twins, Jaylee and Sandra, and they're getting the call. And basically the idea is Jaylee's in the shower. She doesn't realize what's going on, and Sandra's trying to tell her, and she doesn't believe her because, they're siblings. Siblings make things up with each other. And basically, I made the whole page of the comic. But the thing about the twins is I wanted them to speak to each other in Spanish. The problem was I wanted this to be something that an English speaker could read and understand what's going on. And so basically what I did is I made this page, I wrote everything in Spanish, and I gave it to just some of my siblings. It was like, hey, do you get what's going on? The ones that didn't speak Spanish. My siblings that don't speak Spanish. I was like, hey, do you understand what's going on in this page of comic? And they're like, no, I don't understand what's going on. I was like, okay, well, in that case, I need to fix it. And so basically, like I said, I was doing this about a year ago, and then I got to this page, and I just kind of stopped because I was like, oh, they don't understand what's going on. But I've decided, I need to fix this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them speaking in kind of a Spanglish. So they're kind of speaking to each other in Spanish, but I'll mix in enough English words that people understand what's going on. That's kind of the purpose. It's not like it's unheard of. I know I've definitely met people who speak Spanglish to each other. But that's kind of what I'm going to do today. I'm going to fix up the dialogue so it's not all in Spanish and it's understandable to someone who speaks English. And then I'll do the inking, and you guys can kind of see me making a comic page. And so it's going to be great. So let's get to it.
Okay, Future Ben here on commentary duty, and here you can see we're starting with the sketch and inking things in. As you can see, there's a huge text box up here at the top, taking up a lot of space, which is going to be nice since I don't have to do as much work inside text boxes. Then you can see Sandra is running around and Jaylee is having a nice leisurely shower since she doesn't know what's going on. The thing I'm trying to do here to start inking is I want to get to the point I can erase the sketch. Now, if you're familiar with comic making, you're probably shouting at the screen, trying to tell me that I wouldn't have to erase anything if I were using a colored sketch pencil like the pros use, since I could easily isolate the line art in a scan. But I'm an idiot, and despite knowing that, I haven't ever actually bought myself one of those. So, part of my process is I do the ink line art first, doing the lines and trying to basically replace the sketch, but cleaner. And then I erase, letting me come back and make the thicker lines, and also darken the lines I softened when I was erasing the sketch. It's not necessarily smart, but it works, You Spanish speakers might have noticed something about some of the dialogue that I figure I should address, particularly that enormous word at the top of the page with the jagged, shouty lines all around it, and that word is vos. Now, for those unfamiliar, Spanish has a lot of words for you. There's formal, informal, plural, and singular words for you, singular informal being tú, singular formal being usted, plural formal being ustedes, and plural informal being vosotros. Now, those Spanish speakers from outside of Spain probably know vosotros isn't actually ever used outside of Spain and some older books and translations of the Bible. They just use ustedes no matter who they're talking to. However, in some parts of Latin America, the most notable parts of being parts of Central America, such as Guatemala, and parts of South America, like Argentina, they use a truncated form of vosotros, but as a singular replacement for tú, which is vos. Now, I know you didn't come here for a lesson in Spanish grammar, but the important takeaway is that vos is technically not a word in Spanish, more or less a slang term, and I've been told by Guatemalan natives that it was originally a way of making fun of Spaniards for using vosotros. But since the twins are from Guatemala, it makes sense that they would refer to each other with vos. So that's what they do. If you're a Spanish speaker, you can also probably see that verbs are conjugated a little differently with vos, so that they look like two conjugations, but they're not quite the same. I could go on about this for a while, as you can probably see, but you're probably ready to move on, so let's. The next thing I do is make some lines darker. When you're only using black ink pens, you need to have diversity in your line weight. It's an absolute must, or nothing is going to stand out. That's why you'll often see comic book characters with big, thick, black outlines. They want to make sure you know where the characters are, so you can watch and follow them. I use a couple of micron pens with different thicknesses to get that effect. The best rule of thumb for making sure you've darkened the right lines is to look and see if anything looks flat that shouldn't be. For example, you can see that Sandra's hand is extended way out, to the point that perspective makes it look like it's almost the same size as her head. I think on my first pass making the thicker lines, I only did a dark outline around Sandra's body, but on a second look I realized that it looked too flat, so I darkened the outlines around her fingers to make it pop a bit more. Once you've defined your thicker lines, you need to do hatching. Hatching, for those of you who don't know, is the process of darkening an area by making a ton of parallel lines in it. When you're doing black ink drawings, your only two color choices are really black and white, but not everything is like that in the real world. You need to make shadows that aren't fully black and represent darker colored things without making them completely black. That's why hatching is so important. In order for your hatching to look nice, you really need to make sure that your lines are straight and as evenly spaced as possible. If they aren't, you probably need to start using a ruler. When I first started learning, I thought I could do it all freehand, and it just never turns out exactly right. It's not impossible to get, but I recommend using a ruler, especially if you have things intersecting your lines, like those boxes with Sandra and Jaylee's faces in them, or if the lines for the hatching have to be especially long, like on the door. I also recommend, if you're hatching somewhere in a way you're trying to indicate a shadow, and you're going for the comic or manga feel free to draw lines that bound the hatching. It helps divide the shadowed and lightened areas. I also had an art teacher give me some really great advice once, in the only art class I ever really took, which was you never want your cross hatches to be perpendicular. I agree, except in one case, which is when you're cross hatching jeans or other clothes where you can see the stitching clearly. It helps to add to the texture in that case. Also, if you know something has a texture that includes a lot of squares side by side, that would also work. Just use your best judgment and default to non-perpendicular lines if in doubt. And finally, when you need to get too dark, don't forget you can color something in fully black. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that for Sandra's hair in this. I didn't want Sandra and Jaylee to have fully black hair, but it should be closer to black than most hair. So I decided as long as I have highlights, I should be fine to go for it. And here you can see putting all of that to effect here in the mid part of the page, finishing that up. While I do that, there are a couple of things about the channel I wanted to talk about. Frankly, I've uploaded something every week since I created this channel, which I think is pretty neat, but there are a couple of problems with that. The reason I created this channel was mostly because I tend to do a lot of art projects and other various projects, ranging from code jams to custom Pokemon cards. I really wanted to make a space I could post things and people could look at them. What I've realized though is things have been a bit different since I made this channel. The goal of uploading something every weekend has kind of overshadowed my ability to work on bigger projects, simply because I need to pull something out of my hat every week since it's been my goal. But I've been realizing that uploading something every week not only isn't as fun for me as uploading things as I finish them, but it's also not really helping all that much. Sure, the YouTube algorithm likes constant uploads, but I have 20 subscribers, so YouTube doesn't really like my channel anyway. What does that mean? Well, I'm still going to upload things, but I've decided it's not all that important to me to have an upload every weekend. Instead, I'm going to make sure that every week I progress towards a goal of some kind, and when I think I have something that's worthy of sharing, I'll share it with you all and make a video about it. My goal, though, is that every upload will either be some kind of artwork that's genuinely beautiful or meaningful, or maybe I'll make updates on the book Azure Blade as it gets closer to being finished, or show off more pages or even a completed version of this mini comic I'm working on right now. So, even if the uploads of art content slow a bit, no, it's just me trying to put more time into them and make them greater than I've been able to produce since I started doing an episode weekly. Also, Emerald Randomizer Nuzlocke is a lot easier to do than a full art video, and I'll probably upload that at least once a week, just because I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it lends itself better to constant uploads. That said, we're finishing up on the comic page, writing out the words. If your handwriting is half as atrocious as mine, it won't look all that great, but I do have a few pointers for that. First, write in all caps. It just makes it more consistent, and it makes it look cleaner. Also, write it out in pencil first, especially if you're not used to writing in all caps. You want to be able to erase your mistakes, and it's easier to not make mistakes in pen when you're just tracing pencil strokes. And my final bit of advice for this video, try as hard as you can to imagine someone saying the things you're writing. Imagine it out loud. Read them out loud if you have to. You want this to sound like a person talking, not a randomly generated NPC dialogue. And don't be afraid to break grammar rules for people talking. I've written books for a while, and sometimes being grammatically correct sounds robotic. Depending on the character, they might have never said certain phrases correctly in their entire life, Spanish or English. So, there it is. Page 7 of my mini-comic featuring the heroes from the Neutro story. I need to revisit and look at the way I want to go about finishing it. My plan at the moment is a few pages on a jet being given the lowdown of the villain, and then spend the rest of this stack of paper making the full fight with him. Hopefully it'll be good. I'll do updates as I go along. But that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing. I'm going to keep working on this and make more updates as I go along. I hope you're excited for them. That said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.